Hi, good morning. All right, so let's talk about making some Tree of Life pendants. I think I'm going to do one for us every month through 2023. And so I'll show you how I build these. And it starts with some pretty fine wire. I like to use 28 gauge round wire for the tree sculpture. And then the frame can be, this is 16 gauge round. I think I'm using 18 inches of it, and I'm using about 33 feet of the 28 gauge fine wire for the tree. The Bale wire can be optional. I'm using 22 round to wrap it. You could be using half round or 26 gauge, whatever you prefer. And you could actually use 26 gauge for the tree also. You just use a little bit less wire because it's thicker. So anyway, yes, you heard me right. I did say 33 feet of 28 gauge wire is what is in this tree. So how do I get that off my spool? I certainly don't cut 66 pieces of wire. It's 33 feet at 6 inches each, so it's actually 66 pieces of wire in total. So how I do that is I take a 6-inch cardboard. I just make one, out of any cardboard, little thick so that it doesn't bend on you too much. And I cut a little flipper in it, and I take the end of the spool wire and I hook it into the flipper, and then I run, the wire around this cardboard spool 33 times. And I set a bunch of these up ahead of time. You can end the wire at 33 revolutions in a flipper on the other side. And then I just park these, so when I want to make these trees, I just have these ready. But anyway, there's a trick to cutting all this wire off this tree. So this will be half the tree and half the tree. So we'll work at 6 inches. So I hope that helps you spool the wire. Trees are really wonderful because I used to make them a lot, and I stopped making them for a while, but I think I'm going to start making them and sharing them again. So they're really wonderful in that you can do just about anything, with them. So here I tied a small freshwater pearl, and I didn't use any beads for a canopy, and so it kind of looks like a winter moon. A winter pendant. But if I wanted to make it a spring pendant, I might get a bunch of mixed beads and tie them on. So we'll do that down the line. But December's pendant is going to be this one. I hope you enjoy it. And so next in this video, I'm going to show you how to cut all this wire off the spool and get it ready to make the tree sculpture. You would also actually make this frame ahead of time so that you have something to, to put your tree on. So I'm going to use 16 gauge round copper. You can use 18 gauge as a substitute. You can also use 18 gauge square. I know a lot of my patterns have been using 18 gauge square, so you can use that if you don't have 16 round. And then for the tree sculpture, which we'll talk about later, you're going to use 28 gauge round, but we'll hold off on that one. So for the frame, I'm going to cut 16 inches of this 16 gauge round wire. So I have 16 inches of round, soft copper wire that I'm going to use for my frame. And I'm just using my hands and my thumbs and fingers to kind of straighten out this wire. It's a little thicker than we've been using. You could be doing this right now with 18 gauge square also, but this is 16 gauge round. It's a little bit thicker. So, you know, a little harder to work with even at dead soft. So I'll find the approximate center of my wire. I'm going to show you a new tree of life construction so that we can make a very fine tree but hide all of the ends. So I'm going to find the very, you know, the approximate center of my wire here, and I'll just grip it with my plier, and I'm just going to push up into a V shape like that. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to take a dowel, and you can use anything, about 1 inch in diameter. If you have a wooden dowel or a ring mandrel or even a little jar, you can use it. And after the V, I'm just going to put my wire onto the dowel like this and have the dowel help me shape the top of the wire. So this is about 1/2 inch. It could be a little bit more. Maybe, well, maybe from the tip to the jar it's 3/4. And I'll just use my fingers and bring these wires around the dowel until I get a nice kind of ice cream cone shape like this. Okay. And you know, this is about 1 inch across. This now, the pendant will be, you know, maybe 1 3/4 inches, maybe 2 inches in total if you count the Bale. So once you get a nice shape, you'll make sure that they cross, you know, center to the bottom here. And then, you know, I can either mark that, or I can just hold it with my fingers really secure. And it doesn't have to be super perfect. Just make sure that you're kind of aligned to the center. Hold everything and then just give a squeeze right there at that intersection. And it'll straighten your wires up back to vertical. So once they're like that, we'll end up making the Bale out of this portion, and then we're going to flip, you know, the rest of it down back onto itself. But for right now, your focus is right here, and you're just going to make this, you know, a nice shape that you like. You can take your thumbs and right here above the shoulders, if you want to curve it out more, you can do that. You can make it kind of whimsical, like a leaf, rather than just a hard ice cream cone shape. Just soften the shape up a little bit, and just make sure that you kind of, you know, keep center, so that when we make our Bale, it'll be center too. And there goes Jolene, my puppy, because I'm in the camera. Okay, so I kind of like that. That's good there. Kind of like a soft ice cream cone shape. And it can be as wide at the top as you want. Let me get my little measure so you can see what I've done here. This is probably, what is that, 2 inches, 2 1/4 inches, you know, and it's about 1 inch wide, maybe 1 1/4 inches. Okay, so you can make it smaller or larger. Don't go too much larger because we have a certain amount of wire. Alright, so once I get it like this, I'm going to go ahead and hammer my curves here. Get my bench block out. And I'll get my trusted chasing hammer. You can do this with a ball peen hammer. And I'm just going to hammer to flare out this curve here a bit. As I hammer, I'm just going to pull out so that I'm directing this metal out. a 16 gauge, so you kind of have to hit a little harder than you've been hitting with some of my other tutorials. And I'm going to hit more on this curve and then kind of taper it into these, taper it into the point here. Whoop, I just flipped over. And you can do this to your liking. But I try to get, you know, a little bit of a flat edge so that I can land my tree wires, the ends of my tree wires. Kind of like that. That looks real good. Try to do the other side a little similar. It's wider here on these curves than it is down here in these narrow areas. But see, I'm still wider on the first hammer than on the second, so I'll hammer this a little more. And that looks pretty good. So I'll go with that. Okay. Now would be the time too to sand all this metal. I'll do that off camera since we've done a lot of sanding in previous videos. And actually, I'll pull my block back out. We're going to tie up this bale wire next. So while you got your bench block out, don't change the shape, just harden about 1 inch of this neck right here with some gentle hammering. Just like that, just to harden it up a little bit. And don't worry, we'll get it to sit back together there. Okay, make it a little easier for you to wrap that too. So to wrap it, you can do it with your 28 gauge or like we do a lot of the time, we can do 22 gauge half round. In this case today, I'm going to use 22 gauge round, just to be different, rather than half round for my bale. You could be using half round, it work the same. And I'm going to cut about 16 inches of it so that I can wrap my bale. And I'll just start a little 1 inch lead right here. And I'm just going to hold it. This is a thicker wire at round, 22 gauge. So I'm just going to make coils up this bale wire. And I'm working to keep these two wires side by side and not let them do this. Okay? So the first 2 or 3 wraps, you know, the wire might want to twist, and that's okay. You just get it under control. You'll have to use your pliers a lot if you're using 22 round. If you're using 22 half round, like in a lot of my other videos, you can just do it like normal. Keep the flat side of that half round against the frame wire. After 2 or 3 wraps, I'm going to give it a little tap with my plier so that I get them nice and side by side. And then I'll just go over and under to make a nice thick bale. And after about every 5 or 6 wraps, I'm going to use my plier and tap it down. Make sure I keep these nice and neat and side by side. Alright, so keep wrapping until we get to about 1 inch, maybe 1.25 inches. And as you're wrapping, you want to kind of hold it close here so that you have control over these wires. And I'm just going overhanded coils. Whoop. Keep them side by side. Don't let them cross each other, and don't let them get too far out from each other. just going to cut this leading fragment off here. Keep wrapping until you get to about 1 inch to 1.25 inches, depending on how big you want your bale. .22 is kind of thick, 22 round for the bale, but I thought I'd make an experiment and see if I like a thicker bale. And again, you know, you could be using 22 gauge half round or 26 gauge round or whatever you want to wrap this bale wire. You could be making the figure 8 bale and be super fancy about it too. Okay, so once you get it wrapped, you should have a couple of inches, maybe 3 inches left of the wire, and we'll just leave it like that for a minute, and we'll go to our tree sculpture. Keep it near because this is your frame, so we'll be using it, you know, to gauge our tree. Alright, so now that our frame is made, let's talk about cutting these 66 pieces of 28 gauge off this spool. So you'll have to hold on to everything real good. I like to first release what I call my flipper wires. You know, make sure that you're detached right there. And if you did 2 of them, detach right there. Kind of gather them all up neatly and put your thumb on this side, hold them all together under the thumb, and on this side kind of the same, hold them all together with your fingers while you cut, because once we cut it's going to want to spring forth. Alright, so take a nice fine thin cutter, a nice flush cutter works. You know, I like to get kind of close to it because then it's easier. And just whittle your plier underneath these wires and snip all the way across. Make sure you get them all. And we did. Okay? Take a breath. I got a loose guy here, so I'm going to slip him back underneath. It only takes one to make the whole dam go awry. So I'm going to carefully slide, now that they're cut and released from the cardboard, I'm going to slide it all off. Just hold it like a stack of hair. Put your cardboard down. I like to have a nice clear workspace too because they get caught. So right here is the center. Just treat it like hair. And I'm going to put it between 2 of my fingers so that I can cut it and still have control of both halves. So just right here at the center, I'll snip all the wires loose. Now you see these little curly ends? They're going to make your life miserable. So while we build the tree. So your choices are either kind of do like this, but it'll probably still make your life miserable. My choice is to snip them off. So while I'm holding everything, point all of this either to your trash or down to your paper. Point tips down. Put your finger over your blade right here and take the snip, and just like a little haircut. Take the ends off. Okay, so those are all nice and straight. I'll just come over here and do this side. Okay? Push my debris away. Still got my 2 stacks. I'm just going to turn the one around. You know, if you need to lay them down, you can, but then you got to pick them all up again. Okay, point down, get your finger over the debris. Do you see the splatter? So make sure you got that under control, especially if you have little cats or little ones running around. These can be sharp little bits. Okay, just like that. Keep it all neat and tidy away from you. And now we can, now we're ready to start a tree sculpture. Okay, just like that. Keep them all nice and neat. Takes a little bit of getting used to hold them together like that. You'll get it. It's just like hair. So to start my tree sculpture, I'm going to crisscross them here. Not quite in the middle, but close to the center. I want one end slightly longer for the branches and slightly shorter for the tree trunk. And the roots. Okay, so you'll go out of 6 inches. Maybe this here is 2 inches, and you'll just crisscross them like this. Keep it all neat. Hold them like that there, and make one big gigantic twist. Okay, the shorter roots are to the left, so you want to be twisting to the right. You want to twist one more big time for the trunk of the tree. Got a nice trunk of the tree there. Okay, that's going to start the body of the tree. Just hold on to your wires here with your thumb right here at this intersection against your fingers so they don't unravel. Your left hand might get fatigued, so make sure to, get 2 solid turns. You want to always be coming back to your frame. It doesn't seem like 2 solid turns and a 1/2 inch is enough for a tree, but when you start to compare it to your frame, you need room enough for the body, the trunk, and then you need, some interesting space for branches up here, and then a little bit of space down here for roots. So this should be about the way you're looking. I'm going to try to get a ruler up in here so you can see what this measure is. Yours doesn't have to be like this, but I want to kind of give you some scale. Alright, so with these, I'm going to build branch roots that come down here. I have a body, a trunk, and right about here, about midway where my frame flares out, I'm going to start to build branches with these longer wires. Alright, we'll keep the frame handy because everything has to fit in there. Everything that we're building of interest needs to fit into the picture frame, right? Otherwise, why build it? Alright, so I just like to kind of keep the frame down there. And it doesn't matter if you start with branches or roots. It's my habit to start with the bottom of the tree, so the roots. If you feel like you need to tape that so that it doesn't unravel on you, you can. Otherwise, you just hold it right here. We're building roots for the tree, so the bottom of the tree here. Okay. I'm going to hold all the body twists together, the trunk, and I'm going to start with this big chunk of wires over here, and I'll just split them in half. It doesn't have to be a perfect half. They're going to be happy little trees. And right here with my thumb and my index finger, while I hold all this steady, I'm going to make 1, 2 really tight big turns, and if one gets away from you, it's okay. Just put it back. Put that out of the way. And that starts kind of my roots, and it also extends my trunk. That's why we don't want too long of a trunk to begin with. And then right here, I'll go ahead and split these in half, And I'll just turn once. You turn in all the same direction, and two, okay? And then I'll split this one. In the roots, we don't have too much space, so you don't want to start, turning roots, way out here, because it's just going to be a waste of your time. So I'll split this one, and I'll turn real tight here, 1 and 2, maybe 3, okay? And I'm still holding on right here really tight so nothing unravels until you get these roots and pieces turned out. There's a potential for that first couple of turns to unravel. So split the next bunch and kind of do the same, turn in the same direction. So if you're turning overhanded, just turn 2 real tight ones. Then you can split this one and just, bend these other guys kind of down and out of the way. Work real slow, just like maybe you're working with hair. Couple of turns there. Try to keep everything neat while you're working. It'll be easier for you. Just like that. Split these. Get right up here and make a tight pinch, and then one more turn. Okay? So we've got some nice roots now. Okay. Now I'm just going to hold, don't let go of this guy. So I'm just going to hold this frame up so you see what we've been doing. Okay, we're making some roots to this tree. I'm going to actually close up that gap a little bit more, and I'll turn all of these out. I'll twist all of these out, because then I can fold them back on themselves and fill in some of this open gap here, and also catch my frame while I'm doing it. Okay, so instead of leaving, 1, 2, 3, 4 big twisted branch roots right there, we'll do some sculpting and make some nice old tree roots. Okay, so with this one, I like to just, twist the end ones kind of all the way out, just like that. And then with these, rather than have just, big ones coming down, I'll split these again. Doesn't have to be perfect. Trees aren't perfect. Nature's not perfect. It's imperfectly perfect. And as I'm twisting, I'm also pulling down slightly. You don't see it so much, but I'm pulling down slightly, and that's to keep my wires kind of parted at this 45-degree angle. If they part too much, you'll get kind of this tight, not so elegant turn. If you keep them kind of parted at this nice 45-degree, then you'll get a nice twist that looks, like tree branch, like tree bark. So I'll do that one. I'm still holding up here, right? You always have to hold this in the middle, the trunk. So I'll part the next one, get right up into the intersection, and turn these all the way down. Get them all the way down, because then I'll make it easier for you later. Okay, you move the chicken feet out of the way. Do this next one. I just turn this next one all the way down. You can do these randomly, however you want. You'll see here in a minute what goes on. And then this, I'll part this. I don't know if you can hear my little floor heater in the back. We're going to get like -30. And it's pretty cold, so I got the floor heater on. Hopefully it doesn't bug you. Remember that this is the top of the tree. We're working on the roots, okay? We'll sculpt them in a minute. Right now you're just getting the wires twisted up. Okay? Just like that. I don't like to attach, there's a lot of different ways to make trees. This is mine. I sculpt out the entire tree and I continually hold it up to the frame, and then I attach it to the frame once it's all done. The reason is because, you know, sometimes the tree sculpture gets carried away and then it doesn't fit in the frame. So rather than throwing away all the beautiful tree sculpture that you just, you know, epically made, um, if it doesn't fit nicely into this frame, they're two independent pieces, so I can just make another frame that fits the tree, and then I can make another tree that fits this frame. So I don't waste any of my effort here. If you attach it all up and then it kind of goes wrong in the middle, you're really forced to unravel and maybe even waste some of the work. So if you get used to sculpting out your trees and making your frames with the intent for them to go together, you have options to put them together if they don't go together. I hope that makes sense. All right then, we'll continue. So up here now are branches. So I'm about like this. So even though these roots extend way down, don't worry, they should be, because we're going to turn them back up and make interest, right, while we catch our frame. So the crotch of your tree here, the biggest part, maybe is about 1/4 of an inch away from the bottom point, and you've got a nice maybe 1/2 an inch, maybe 3/4 if you go all the way up here, of trunk, and then you've got the upper 50% of this frame for branches. The branches are the beautiful part, so we want to split them and make all of the interesting bits about them fit into this space. No point in splitting and twisting branches clear out here, because then they're not in here. So I probably made these wires longer than I needed to, but it's okay. Longer wires are easier to work with when you're doing this. It gives you a little room for elegance rather than just choppy, tense wire. All right, so with all that in mind, I'll hold the center of my trunk and I'll split this first bit of tree branch. They don't need to be even, just split them. And then get right in here into the center and do 1 1/2 really tight turns. Okay? Keep your tree facing you the same way all the time so that your twists all go the same direction. Don't flip your tree over and then start twisting, because then you're actually untwisting what you just did. So if I need to get to this over here, I turn the tree upside down, not over. So all my twists are going in the same direction. We're facing the same direction of the tree all the time. The front of the tree. So I'll split this main branch and I'll make 1 1/2 really tight big twists. Come back up here and look at your frame. You start to see, you know, in the way trees the way they build themselves is they go thick and then they start to spread thinner and thinner and thinner as they branch out, right? So you can see here every twist brings you closer to your edge. So your interest has to be, you know, further splits have to be quick. So you don't want to turn 3 and 4 and 5 times and then do splits, because you'll be clear out here. So I only did 1 1/2, and you know, and then I have my 4 pieces here. So I'll split this and I'll only turn real tight here at the intersection, 1/2 to get them, and then 1 whole time to cinch them. Okay? And then I'll do the next one. Split your bundle there. Keep them neat. And then get right into the intersection and do 1/2 to cinch them, and then 1 whole time around to catch them. And maybe, you know, another 1/2 or 1 whole time as you approach the top of the tree where you have more space in the frame, just so that you can make this one a little longer than this one, so they're not all 1 1/2 twists. Okay, So you just kind of have to get into the tree zen, but work, each branch towards the frame. Don't do all this one and then all that one and then all that one, because then the tree is not balanced, or at least I cannot balance the tree that way. So I work each one. Okay, so we just finished this one and this one. Now we'll go over here. Just move these out of your way like that. Keep them separated so that you can continue to work with them, but just move them out of your way. And I continue to hold the body here as well. And if these get in your way, same thing, just move them, because you can shape them and sculpt them later. Right now it's a matter of holding and twisting and sculpting your branches. So we'll split the second main branch, get right in here and do a half. Just get them all together. If they separate, it's okay. And do one more. Then I might even just do one more, just to keep them out of balance. Okay. I'll move my tree around so that I can get to this guy over here. Split it, and I'll give it 1.5 nice twists. And I'll keep it a little shorter than that guy. Okay. And now I have 8 from the 4 from the 2. Right? 2, and then to 4, and now to 8. Okay? And it doesn't have to be exactly like that, but I'm just trying to... And you see, I still have plenty of really groovy space to start making the interest. These first couple of splits into the main branches, they're cute, but they're not the fun parts. The fun parts are when you start to really, split these up. So that's what we'll do now, and I'm still within my frame, okay? So I'll take this one over here, and I'm holding still, my main body here all the time. And I'll split these two up. And I'll just get right here. And I'm holding the body of the tree, but I'm also holding close to where I'm twisting here. Okay? I did just one. Okay? And because my frame is shaped in this way, I'm pretty close to the edge. You see it? So for me to continue to split and make branches out here makes no sense. So I'll just twist this one up since I'm already against the frame. And I like to twist, most of it out. You don't have to, but it might make it easier for you to treat it like one wire when we try to feed it back in to the frame and lock it into the frame. So I just twist it out to about there, way more than necessary, because we're going to cut it off right here is where the frame is. But this will help you wrap it around and get it secure. So don't think you can do it with just that much. You won't have anything to wrap. Okay, so just my habit to do that. And now just the next one. Pull it a little bit forward. You can bring that down. And I'm holding it all right here. I'll split these two. I'll get close. Okay. And if I wanted to, I could split them again. But again, I'm, considering my frame goes this way, it's pretty narrow here, so, do I have room to do another split? Would it make some interest? If I leaned my tree to the left, why, yes, I do. Our trees don't have to be in the middle. Look, I could lean my tree to the left. What a happy accident that is. Just kind of slope it down the left of my frame. Then I might split these and, make more of the interesting branches kind of go this way. And keep these short over here just to attach. That's an option. Or if I keep my tree centered, then I can split and, have interest there. But do you see what I mean by you're approaching the edge of the frame here? So if I split these, I'm out. So I just keep twisting right here too. and I have, you know, a nice look there. I'll probably try to split these up a little bit more up top. So I'll just turn, keep those all nice and neat, and just turn it all out. And again, I'm, you know, as I'm twisting, I'm kind of pulling back. You don't see it, but that's kind of the motion, and I'm keeping these deliberately at kind of a 45-degree angle as I turn, so that my twists are kind of elegant going down rather than, you know, tight little cables. Okay? All right, so we'll go to the next one. And again, just keep your branches out of your way, but keep them in their segments. I'm working with this one here, and I'm at the top of my frame here now, because this is going to be the top of my tree. So I might have room to split it a couple of times with this one here and this one here, right? You're making a picture that you want to fit inside that frame. So I'll do like one big twist here, but then, you know, maybe I'll twist it again just on this one. And I'll split this one up. And sometimes you have to kind of get, you know, in and out, you know, work patiently, because these are a bunch of little wires. I think that's why people do this a lot with, you know, 26 gauge or 24 gauge. So they're only using like 20 of these wires instead of 60 like you're using. But the more wires you use, the finer tree sculpture you can have, and you'll see the fun business here soon. We're not even fun yet. We're just getting the tree built right now. You know, and eventually just get it out like that. You know, just enough to get all the wires together and past your frame, so you can use it to wrap onto the frame. So here I only got 4 bits, so I'm splitting them 2 and 2. And I'm just turning them, and I'm stroking down each wire just barely lightly, just to keep them under control and straight while I turn. And then you got to hold them way up here. Otherwise, it's, you know, if you hold it way down here, it's real hard to turn them. Okay, and just like that, just enough to, you know, once I get to the end, you can get lazy and just do like that. Okay, see how much finer those 2 little branches are? And they still are kind of stick straight because we haven't made a sculpture yet, but I'm just trying to show you. So you see what I mean by, you know, these splits will go off the frame right here, but you see this one, you got one more little one in there. So you got the main one and then one little one. And then here too, you can split them a couple more times. Okay? Just keep working until hopefully all this is making sense to you. But just keep working your happy little tree here. So I'll do this one. Turn it. See, and sometimes you've got to pull the wire, you know, you got to kind of do like that and give yourself some space. Just keep yourself oriented. This is the top of my tree, and sometimes I can go, it doesn't have to all be flat. If I need to pull this out here so I can twist it, I can do that. Okay. Oh, I twisted too many. I was talking. I can already tell I twisted way too many times. So I'll just untwist. Okay, you can just untwist in the same way. Just slow down. Scrape these out. Probably twisted about 4 times more than I meant to. And remember which side is the front of your tree. So I put, you know, 4 branches over here, 4 roots over here to the left. So this is the front of my tree. So I just backed off of some of these. I'm going to get my frame back up here. Yeah, see, had I kept going, I would have just been one big stick right up off the tree. I don't want that. So I did a little bit, and then I split them again so I can have a little thinner branch go, right? Instead of just one big one and then one big one, and then one big one. Okay, so we'll split them again. So right here, since I munched it, the wire is so thin I can just use my fingernails and scrape it straight. And then you just split them. If there's like 6 here, maybe you do 3 and 3, maybe you do 4 and 2. Okay, get it right there at that intersection and twist. And then just twist it all the way out, because no more is going to fit right there in my frame on that spot. So I just keep going all the way out here till I get far enough that I think I got enough to wrap around my frame, and that's about enough. Okay, and then I'll do this one. Split these 2. There's 4 of them here, so I'll go 2 and 2. Okay, just get it far enough. Okay, that's pretty good, right? That's kind of pretty. So let's get our frame back up. I almost like to, bring my frame up every branch so I can kind of see what I'm doing as I'm sculpting here. Okay, so you see how all that's starting to fit really nice into my tree sculpture there, and I can, manipulate these and bend them. We're going to start to bend our tree up into a whole little haggy tree here in a minute too. I won't do that yet because I want you focused on turning out your branches, but keep twisting up your tree. So we'll just repeat on this other side. Remember to keep facing your tree in the same direction. So when you move to this other side, then I just like to finish. I put all those kind of off like that. They're all twisted up, so you'll be able to part them again. And then just get these under control, right? And work one at a time. So here's the upper center of our tree. Look how cute that's going to be. So here's the upper center. I'll split these. Kind of fitty-fitty. 60-40, something like that. And then I'll get it right here tight at this intersection. Make 1 and 2 tight, or 1 1/2, and then split it again. And do this branch out. Just work patiently. This one I'm going to take all the way out because I know it's the top center of my tree. That's good enough. And then I'll split this other one. Sometimes you have to move one wire, just like that. Just get right in there. See, I'm almost 90 degrees to the tree, just so I can turn it, because you can always put it back. Just make sure you know which way is up. I always earmark, 4 roots to the left. It looks a little squirrely as you're working it, but don't worry. And once you get, enough, you can just turn out those ends. And now do the next one. Let's look at our tree. So let's bring these back to the top. Don't be afraid. It's your tree. Just work it like a little picture. Okay, just like that. I just straighten everything out and make it pretty again so I can see it, so it's not this jumbled mess. Okay, just like that. Now bring your frame back. Oh gosh, that's pretty. See how that goes? You know, earmark this has to fit into the bottom. So just like that, just give yourself a half an inch there for roots, but pay attention up here. Oh, look how pretty. And then decide, am I going to go straight tree, straight up and down, or do I want to kind of offset my tree to the left a little bit? See my phone every time. Okay, so we might do that. We kind of look at sweep it a little bit. But anyway, so you get an idea. You're starting to build a picture. Finish turning all of these out. Don't get tempted and start trying to attach your tree with all these loose wires. So I'm going to start turning these and finish these branches, and then we'll start attaching the tree to the frame. So I'll just go to this next batch here. Just get all of this out of my way. I'm going to work with this one. Tight twist, and then maybe I'll split them again. I got four of them. So I'll just do a little tiny little branch up this way. Like that. Just get them far enough up that you can attach, and you can just kind of, pat down the rest of them here. Okay. And this one, focus your twists so that you're beautiful inside the picture frame. But then once you get beyond the picture frame, you can just, start to turn them enough to just get them together so you can take them around the frame. They don't have to be a perfect little twist. These twists are the twists that you want pretty, because that's going to be the tree. So here's the final last two. Make sure you're always resting your hands in between and your eyes. These are delightful to make, but they can be, it's a repetitious motion, and so it might hurt your little wrist. So I'll twist two, and then I'll split and finish up these. And you can bring some of these back around on themselves. I don't tend to, but you could, just like we're going to do the roots that way to fill in, just to fill in more branch space, but it'd be up to you. I don't tend to do them that way because you always have to finish these ends somewhere. So we'll make them just this way today. So I'll spin these out. Just get this up there. Just start getting them together up here. And then this last one, just turn it out. And since this is a narrow space in my frame, I'll just go all the way out, not split this one at all. Okay? Okay. All right. So, gonna fiddle your tree back into shape. Put your roots down and your branches up. Just kind of loosey-goosey or rough like that until we see what kind of picture we want to make now. So now we'll bring the frame up. And I like to, ooh, that's going to be so pretty. So we have to attach our roots down here. So we have to have like a half an inch. Not necessarily, but a little bit here to attach the roots in an interesting way. So if your tree is just too long and stick straight, you can add some interest to the sculpture. Hold it in the main body where the two open main twists are, so it doesn't untwist, and just be brave and bend it in half. remember what's your roots and what's your branches. So just make a big, hump like that. And then bring your roots down and bring your branches up. Just like that. Bring some of these roots over to the left and balance things back out. And it might cause some kind of gnarly, interesting root situation down here you didn't know, but that's kind of fun. So like that. Or you could go more straight, whichever you want. If you don't like it, put it more straight again. Okay? So just make some interest like that and sit your tree trunk in a nice picturesque kind of way, and make sure that, we'll turn those in a little bit more, but just make sure that the majority of your branches are actually, in the area of interest, which is inside this frame. Okay? Like that. Okay. So that's about where I want mine. So I'm going to hold my tree exactly where I want it here. And I like to do the roots first. So I'm just going to hold all of this. I got the body of my tree, and I'm going to work one root at a time. Okay? I'm going to start with this one over here. Point down when you cut these tips off. I like to always just take the upper tips off. Leave yourself an inch at least, so that you can turn around your frame. We've treated like each of these is a wire, one whole wire. But if you take these tips off, it'll make it more comfortable for you to work. Okay? So there's that. I'm at the bottom of the tree, and I've got it held exactly where I want it, and I'm focused on my roots right now. I'll work the branches later. So one at a time, I'm going to take this one, and as a whole, I'm going to treat it like a whole cable. Okay? And I'm going to just turn it. You can't pull too hard because, you pull your tree out of position. But just kind of feed it over this frame wire and get one nice turn, just like that. Make sure that your tree's still sitting where you want it. And then once you think you have a really nice tight 360 right here, you can trim the wires off just right here at the back. Okay? Don't trim them so that they're exposed to the outside. Trim them so that they're all pointing kind of towards the inside. Trim them real close to the frame. Hold that fragment when you trim it and treat it just like one big cable. You'll see all those little bits. Let me try to change my camera so you can get focused up. You'll see all these little bits down here. You see where you just cut it? Just take your plier and carefully tap it down, like roll them. They don't have to be, don't squish them because they'll squish all out. Just kind of gently work them so that they lay in and down. Okay? In and down. I'm going to show you the biggest trick of the day at the end of this video. Just like that. Okay? We're going to put a frame over it, so don't worry for now. Okay, so there's one turn. And then just carefully work. I'm going to try to raise my tree a little bit. I don't have enough space at the bottom. Let's see, it still slides just from that one wire. So you just slide my tree up and down. Okay, it's about right there. Maybe a little lower. And now I'll go to this side And I'll just work this tree root all the way through and tight. Get it tight and close. Okay? Pull it all the way through. And then just cut it right here, coming towards the front. I think I cut that one going towards the back. The roots should have been up here at the front of the tree. We're going to flip this frame over, and so all the root ends are actually going to be, it sounds counterintuitive, and that's why I kind of messed that first one. I'll fix it. But you want to cut all your ends off on this upper frame so that when we sandwich this one down, all the cut ends are going to live inside, in between the frame. They won't be exposed to the side that, you know, touches the skin. Okay, so we just went 360 with this root around this frame, and now I'm going to cut it off here in the front, real close and on top of the frame, just like that. Okay, real close and on top of the frame. And then just use your pliers. And don't go too hard, but just kind of comb them over and like burnish them onto the frame. Okay? I'll twist that one around. If you haven't done that one yet, you know, just take one layer off and cut it up here. It's okay. Okay, so that's 2 roots. And now I'll work this next one. I'm going to just try to get it all together in there. Try not to let them fray while you do this, because it'll be harder on you if they fray. And just, it doesn't need to be a super tight loop, right? Just try to make a 360 all the way around and cut up here in the upper. Get it tight so that it cinches in there, and then just cut so that those cuts live on top, and then pat them down, gently just tap them down onto the upper portion of the frame. Don't worry if you feel snags, just kind of get them laying down, because we're going to put wire over them. So this, you know, again, work your little roots into some interesting arrangements down here. You don't have to do them all in order. I might do this middle one next. Kind of feed it through there. You know, pull it tight to the frame, but don't make it a stick, right? So give it room enough to have some little interest up in here. Having a hard time doing this, and sometimes you go through twice if you need to, right? Okay, so I've got that all cinched up. I'm going to cut them right up here on top. Make sure you've got one total loop around that frame, and then I'm just going to pat them down. Doesn't seem like it's going to hold, but it will. You just, you know, don't panic just yet, and don't worry about them just yet. Just get them in place. And this one, I'm going to come through the bottom and maybe go through the center here. I might just, you know, maybe I'll turn this one more like this. If they start to fray, just get them. And then I'll turn it down like that. Use my plier and tap it down like that. I might just turn this end. I want to fill in that little gap, so rather than cut that off, I might just turn it up to the back side. Use my pliers and twist these ends up a little bit more. cut it off up here. Just let it lay back here. It's kind of just laying, you know, the ends are just kind of bunched up right there in the back, rather than, you know, being a tight loop and a tight loop and a tight loop. Just some straggly interest. And then I have one more. You know, maybe I'll go this way with it. Or maybe I'll swing it around to the back and, you know, go up that way and come through these branches over here. And I've got the frame, so now I can just use this last wire and maybe fill in some gap like that. You can do what's pleasant to yours. And I'll just turn these little ends. I'm just going to turn these little ends and tuck them into that space there. I'm going to put a wire over this down here, so I cut those off. I'm turning this end pretty tight. And I'm just going to let them live in that little space right there. Okay, so I just got some gnarly little tree roots. And they're not looking like they're all little stick figures, right? So that looks pretty good. It's not too bad. My cuts are all up here. This is the front of my tree. Well, this is, you know, it's going to be interesting on both sides. So I don't have too many cuts exposed in the back here either, the way I laid them down. So kind of always just think to, you know, put your cuts up here, and then if you have anything like this loose end, just kind of tucked it into this neat space right there so that it isn't actually out or on anything, just like that. Okay, just a little sculpture like that. Okay, so that'll hold. If you feel like you need to tighten things up, you know, just take your nylon jaw and do a gentle squeeze. And a gentle squeeze. Don't smash all of the character out of your roots. Okay, just like that. And now the same with the top. We'll cut all these little frayed ends off. Make sure you splay. So I kind of like to just splay my branches out before I cut anything off. So I go through and I straighten out each one a little bit, give it a little hair trim, like that. Okay, and now you're looking at all of this, and you want to see if you love that. I think I kind of just love it the way it is. But if we wanted to make some interest, you know, if things were looking too straight, like maybe this one's looking too straight, I can take my plier, and I don't like to just do, you know, I like to kind of strategically turn them. That looks pretty good. Turn the next one a little bit. So it's not always right next to each other. I turned down here and then I turned up here, and that looks pretty good. Sometimes you squeeze these little intersections right here to get them back together if they're parting a little bit. Fan them out, you know, give a little turn there. And just kind of paint with your eyes and your wire and see what is pretty and interesting to you, and just kind of sculpt your tree a little bit. I do this turning before I attach and trim the wires, just in case you needed a little more room than you thought you needed. So see, these two are kind of looking like twins right there, so I might change one, right? And you know, maybe I bend this one and crisscross these branches a little bit. right? Because it doesn't have to all be perfect up and down, you know, like stick branches. You can take them in and out of each other a little bit. Yeah, that's nice. So you just sculpt yours. And then, you know, they're always wider and then they go narrower. So as you're pinching, you want to make sure that you're pinching narrow where they're supposed to be narrow, right? To define those areas, you see I'm just lightly pinching some of this to give it definition, but to not take the character out of it. Mostly I like to pinch the ends of these smaller branches to make them really, you know, taper down. And then I like to take things that are flat and make sure they're not flat. Just whatever your eyeball likes. I probably don't have to do any of this and be super pretty anyway. You just don't want to leave things looking unnatural. You know, trees are just weird and beautiful. So they can be anything. They can be however you want. Okay, so I like that a lot. So when you're happy with your little tree sculpture, make sure that you got enough to wrap around these places. But you don't want to wrap with these frays because that'll make it miserable. So I'm going to cut my frays off, but I'm going to make sure that I still have enough length to comfortably catch my frame with a, you know, a 3/60 and a half. Okay. And just work carefully. Remember that all the cuts have to land up top here because we're going to bring this frame wire down over. So since I love my sculpture, I won't move anything. I'm just going to wrap 3/60 and I'm not going to pull too hard because I don't want to make my little branch straight. I might have to put the bend back into this branch once I wrap it. You might have to, a little bit. Try to get, you know, one solid wrap around. Maybe go one more if you have to, and then land the cut up top here. This one is the lowest branch, so I went down the frame. Just like that. Just land those cuts right there. And then same with this one, hold your little branch in position and just turn this 1.5 and cut up here. And then lay them all down right there. Okay? Just work around the tree. Attach the whole thing. Work carefully and slowly. Remember, you don't want to take the interest out of your tree, so as you pull this tight, don't pull these straight. You know, kind of hold it right here so that you keep the interest in your tree. Go 1.5. I work these one at a time because otherwise it's just a mess. Just work under control all the way up your tree. I maybe did this one a little short. It's probably enough. going to barely be enough. If I get like this, see all my little frays are out. Just turn them up. Not a big deal. Just turn them up. Trim them neat. Make sure they're laying on the frame and not extended over the sides. So all my little cuts are just living right there. Same here. Hold this. Go 1.5. Cut it right there. Tap it down. You know, look at everything. Don't just go blindly. Look at everything. Make sure these are where you want them. I'm going to put a nice moon right there, so got to make sure I have room for the moon. And then once you get up here near the Bale, just make sure you plan them so that they're not odd. You know, this one goes this way, that one goes to that side of the Bale, so that you don't have, you know, things going, you know, everything going over here, right? So just make a nice sculpture and put these where you want them. They don't all have to go down. Like this loop makes more sense to put it towards the top of the frame. Just work these little wires. Cut them all off so that the cuts live on the frame. Tap them down. Okay. I like that little crisscross. Okay, so I'll cut these little frays off. Whoop. Make sure you point it down when you cut your frays off so that they fall down onto your paper and not all over your carpet. Okay, and onto this one. And, you know, they don't have to be perfect. It's a perfect little tree. You just get these little fray ends to the front when you cut them off. Other than the sculpture being beautiful, that's the only next most important thing. Is that the cuts all live on the same side of this frame. The side that's looking at you. Tap it down. Look at this. Do these last ones. This one. 2 more. Cut that. Tap them down. And fit this one through this little hole right here with my little phrase. And I'll just cut it. And pinch it. Okay. Alright, that looks pretty good, you guys. So all your cuts are living up here, okay? And now we have our bale wire and the rest of our design wire coming off this frame. These little fragments, I would take them straight to the trash right now. And the last thing you want to do is take your hand over them like that, because you'll get all kinds of wire splinters. So if you didn't do this over the garbage can, then do like this on your paper and take them into your copper bucket, like I just did. I have copper scraps. Alright, so here's the front of our frame, and I have my bale here that I did, the bale wraps, and now I'm gonna turn this wire, this bale wire, over and onto my beautiful tree. And I'm going to part them and make kind of like a sandwich frame on top of this one. So all of these little cuts, they're going to be hidden, right? And this side is cut free, except for maybe, you know, anything you might have left down here. Hopefully you didn't leave anything too much. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to take this. I have a pretty thick bale wire, so I'm just going to hold everything steady and do a slight back bend. And then with your fingers or with a dowel, you can start to turn this bale over. You want to bring these two wires straight over the tree, straight over down the center of the frame, just like that. And you want to make these little wraps kind of meet, but you want these wraps with the end to be slightly above these, okay? You can use a metal plier if you need to, and just bring those two ends together. You know, if they meet like mine meet, it's okay. If you feel like this front one is lower, then you need to back off some wraps. You have to be even, or you have to be 1 or 2 wraps less than the back one. Okay, and that's so that when you part these wires, you'll end up in the same space, you know, that the bottom portion of the frame starts. If your wraps are way down here, then when you part the wires, they're going to part way down here in the middle of your tree. Okay, so you want to be even, or you want to be 1 or 2 wraps less. Okay, when you're there, take that bale wire that you've been wrapping and make 1 complete loop, maybe 2, neatly all the way around. I'm going to use my plier because this is thick wire, all the way around the neck here, okay, to catch it. And then if you want, you can either do 2 of these laps, you know, around the center wire, or you can take and terminate this wire off on the edge here with 1. Make sure there's no bubbles there. and 2, you know, I do like 1.5 and tuck the end inside. Just tuck the end inside there and tap it like that, nice and neat. Okay. So now again, this is the front where all the cuts are. I'm going to hold my frame here at the neck, and I'm just going to part the wire so that it kind of matches the lower frame. Okay? Try to keep your bale. It might want to turn on you, and that's okay. Just try to keep your bale center. I'm holding it with my pliers. And I've turned these wires out almost to horizontal. Okay? And they match kind of the turnout of the bottom of the frame. And then I'm going to take and just curve this wire to match the frame. So using my hands, try to turn some nice elegance into this wire and just shape it like the frame underneath it. Get it nice and elegant, just like that. Okay, we're going to hammer that out. If you didn't want to hammer it out, you could just, you know, wrap it on if you wanted to. You'd have to do something to the end here a little bit more, but we're going to hammer them. So I'm just going to make sure my slope is nice and elegant. And I'm just going to use my thumb and help myself curve to match that frame, just like that. Okay. Very nice. I like that thicker wire up here. Two parts though. If you need to kind of scooch, sometimes when you turn the bale wire, your coils apart, and you can always just fiddle them later and space them out to even over that turn. I used 22 gauge round to see what it looked like. It's kind of thick. I'd probably stay with half round if I were you. Oy, my fingernails. Alright. Alright, so I've got a nice turn. And I'm going to go ahead, before I do anything more with these lower wires, I'm going to go ahead and hammer these curves out. So to do that, just going to bring them out. Your hinges here at the neck, you can turn them this way, or you can turn them, you know, 90-degree forward, whichever works easier for you. I'm going to just do them like this, turn them out right here. Don't change the shape of your curve, and I'll just hammer this. Make sure you're on your block. I'm just tapping slightly. Mostly I'm just hammering the curve, and I'm tapping slightly into the straighter area. It doesn't need to be a lot, just a little bit. And then when you put these back down, watch that little bump right there. Whoop. You see it? So sometimes you have to fix that. If that happens, you can take you know, your plier, and you can fiddle that back into elegance, and just make sure your curve drops over the curve again. Okay, so push back close to this neck so that you don't get that little bump if you can avoid it. Okay, it's thicker wire here, so that looks pretty good. Let me fiddle this a little bit more. got a lump over here. I gotta fiddle that. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now you have these two frame wires here. Probably gonna mess some more with this one. So I'm just gonna correct it a little bit using my nylon jaw because I'm having to do a lot of grip strength there, so I don't want to dent my wire. Actually, that looks a lot better. So if that happens to you, you can get your nylon jaw out, kind of muscle that area right there. Oop. Okay. Alright, that looks pretty nice. Bend my neck back a little bit. You won't be struggling this because hopefully you used half round wire here. I told you half round and I ended up using full round just to see what it would look like, and it's a little tough to work with. So that should have gone a little easier for you than it did me. And we've got this hammered sections now covering a lot of our little cuts in there. Okay, so now we'll do something pretty down here with the rest of this wire if you want to. And what I like to do is, so first I'll just kind of, the lower one here, I'll just park it. Okay, this upper one, I'm going to put into a V shape right here and bend this wire back up and kind of make a nice arc out. Okay, so make sure all this is going down the way you want it. And then just right here, near the tip, hold it so that you can bend it into a V shape that kind of matches the tip. Just like that. Just got it held right there, and all I did was pushed up. Okay? Just like that. It's kind of sloped to meet the other side. And you can do, you know, some kind of cutie with this. So like I might take it right here, put a nice big arc in it with my thumb. Like that. You could even, you know, curve it down if you want, but I'm gonna put a little moon, I think, right there. So I might just make it go up a little bit more. This is big wire, so it's a little hard to work with. But just make a nice pretty curve right there. I'm going to cut mine right here. Cut the tip off. If you were going to, we might as well do it. If you're going to hammer this out into a tiny little curve and you wanted a slanted tip, you might cut this at 45 degree to give yourself a little slant. And then when you get your, ooh, I'm wrecking my nails. And then you get your round nose plier on it here, kind of burnishing that end a little bit. Just going to turn a little bit of a tough wire, so turn a little bit of a curve into it like that. Ooh, I like that. I'm going to hammer that out, and then when I do, that'll be a nice curvy, you know, slanted little tip. So now that you have that looking the way you want, we got to pull this out again for hammering, right? So right here at your hinge, at the V, just take it and bend it out. It'll cause that, don't worry. just get it out enough to hammer this bit. So come over here, get on your block the best that you can. And just hammer out that tip. And then tap in, taper it into the rest of it. Just like that. Okay, and I'm going to clean this up while it's out here. I got a nasty little fragment at the end of that. So I'll just do shortcut. So I just snipped off that little bit that was sharp and hazardous. I'm going to take my file and sandpaper and clean that edge. Okay, and you have it looking the way you want. We'll just, for the sake of it, say that I sanded it. Right back here at your bottom hinge, make sure you're coming back into the top of the tree here, and just turn it back. Don't push, don't pull, just turn it. Okay, and so you got a little thing there, no big deal, it's cute. Okay, very nice, just like that. Okay, probably could tie some of that together a little bit. And then you have the option, to do another little something something with this guy. You can either swing him around and do something on this side if you want, like if you had something messy going on right here, you could land a nice, just big chunky curl and have it be pretty, or you could flip it back on this side, kind of have it echo the tree if you want to, or you can come back up this side and just do a little curly business right here. So I think for the sake of this one, we're going to tie these together, make it easy on ourselves here, and I'll just flip this one to the opposite side. So I'm going to hold everything right here where I want it. Get my plier out, and I'm going to get about 1/4 of an inch below it, below the tip, and then hold everything steady and just turn 90° over to this side. Okay, you have to have that little extra bit because you're turning into bulk. So that little 1/2 inch, or not 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch below allows you to make this turn without riding up on your frame too much. And then right here you can just turn a little cutie like that. So we just did that. Okay. Now when I tie that together, it's just a cute little bit at the bottom. It doesn't look too disturbed. See? Okay. And now you have this on this side that you can do some cute design with if you want to. Pull it out a little bit and maybe turn it into a littler spiral right here maybe. Yeah, I'll do that. So I'll cut it down. It's probably about 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch from the curve. You're going to hold all that because we haven't tied it. If you want to tie it first, you can. I just didn't. And for the sake of things, since I demonstrated here, I won't do the same on this side. I'll just turn it down, but you can turn it down, hammer it, do all the same stuff. Just going to take it in my round nose. I'm holding this down here, and I'm just going to turn a little curve. It's tough wire. So just turn a little cute curve like that. remember that we're going to tie all that. Just get this first because you don't want to tie it and then want to bend this out and hammer it. It won't work so nice. So get this turned the way you want it. I'll just turn it a little more. It's pretty cute. And then to hammer it, you know, it goes really easily either out 90 degree or out to the side. Out to the side works pretty well. And I'll hammer this. Just taper it down. Okay, so that makes a nice hammer. And then just return the wire into position. You can sand all that. You know, I didn't just because the video is getting a little long. Just going to snip it and clean it, which you can do also. So there we go for that. And now it's just a matter of, you know, tying these down. Okay, so I'll just do that with a little bit of 28 gauge because I have it with my other stuff, with my wire handy already. Take my 28 gauge, and I'm just going to take about a foot of it because I don't need too much here. And I'll make sure this is the front because my tree was going to the left. I guess both sides could be either side, and that's how it's going to go. And I'll get these wires tied together by just doing a couple of simple laps, you know, either right here or down below. I'm going to do this, probably both. I'm going to do 3 or 4 little wraps right here around these 2 frame wires. Okay. Maybe 3 or 4 so it looks deliberate and it looks nice. 2 makes it maybe a little more utility, but if you do 3 or 4, it'll look nice there. Keep this first one. After you get, you know, a few of them there, since you're here and you got another wire on the other side to tie, jump over and get it. Don't do this stretch over the frame like that though, because look at that, you don't want that. So when you can, go dive in so that you can make that crossing a little more elegant. Keep them side by side right here. There we go. And see, I jumped to the opposite side, but I dove in rather than have this thin wire stretch across there. So I'll come to this side and I'll just do a few wraps to this guy and tie him to the frame. Careful as you're wrapping you don't dive into your tree with this little wire. Sometimes that happens. And I can make, you know, 3 or 4 little wraps on this side. And if you want to, you can tie little ball beads, little copper ball beads. It's a nice space for that. I'm not going to. I'm just going to give you the idea to do it. But you could, right here while you're tying these together, you know, string some little copper ball beads straight down that channel. You know, put a ball bead and then go around the frame. You know how to do that. I've shown us in some other videos how to tie on ball beads, so I'm not going to in this one. I'm just going to do a couple of little wraps, 3 or 4. It's a little tricky because the tree is there and this wire wants to dive into the tree, but just work it patiently. And then when you get a few that you like and you're done, just make, you know, 3 or 4 around the single frame wire if you want to secure it. Make it look neat. Then we'll cut it and tuck the end into the space between. Okay, so snip right there. Take your plier and just turn that end into the space between the tree and the frame. Space between the frame, I mean. You can use smaller pliers and make it easier. I'm just using bigger ones because maybe people don't have small ones. Some people. Okay, so I use the small ones all the time. So here I go with. There's two wires here. I'm going to try to get in between them if I can. I might have gone too tight, so maybe I can't. Oh, I can. Just get a single wrap right there and lock it in. My wire just broke, and that's fine. You know, 1 or 2 wraps around that single guy. My wire broke inside there, so it's actually okay. But you basically want to do the same as you did on this side. Just a couple little ones. That looks pretty good. And then if you feel like you need to, you know, like here, we're slipping here. So that's not enough. You want to do another little wrap or 2 down here. And you can do that, you know, next to this frame wire right here. So you can just use some of the fragment we just had. And come down here to where the frames got open space. And give yourself a leading tail here. And you can make, you know, 3 or 4 little wraps around the bottom of the frame to tie these together here. And again, you can get creative. I could have done this, you know, could have left one long root branch and used a root branch to tie these together. Make it look like the tree is kind of bleeding out of the frame. I'm doing this for what's easy and to show you guys. I'm just filling in ideas with my talking. So after you get a few and you think you like it, you can cut it off and tuck the wire, you know, underneath these two. Or if you feel like, you know, you need to cinch it in to the tree roots, you can pass this wire. You have to get a real straight end on it. Pass the wire through the tree roots to hide it. So I'll do a lap or 2 that way. Just dive it into my tree roots right there. So you get the idea. Figure out creative ways to secure off that wire and hide the end. Okay, so my wire broke as I was in the middle of the tree roots, which is perfect. Or you can just do like we always do. Do a couple of laps around a single frame wire. And then cut it and tuck the end down here where we can't feel anything along the inside. Right there. Just like that. So your tree ends are all in there. And your trunk ends should be pretty much all in there too. So you'll look, this side has no ends. So you look around and see if you have ends. If you do, you can snip them or tuck them. And then now we can tie a nice moon or a nice, you know, bead right here. I like to tie it to the side that, you know, has the crevice, but you could do it to either side. So let's get our moon bead out. All right, so I'm back with a few options. I have this beautiful little coin pearl right here. It's drilled, you know, you can barely see them, but it's got a hole on the top and on the bottom. And then I can attach that by using a little 28 gauge to a couple of my tree branches here. It'll be pretty. It would be actually pretty on both sides, you see. I could also go larger. This is a nice amethyst, kind of purple moon. I could also, this is also a bead that has 2 holes, so I could put that there too. A little pink pearl. That's cute. Whoop. Pink pearl might be cute. I don't have any more of those golden pearls like the last trees. I'm going to have some mother of pearl. They're oval, but this is the one I wanted to pull out. That might be pretty. It's just a turquoise. It's fake turquoise, but it's pretty. Little turquoise matrix. Okay, so I think for us, I'm just trying to give you ideas. I want to tie on my little coin pearl. So I just need about, I don't know, 6 inches or less of 28 gauge, which is the same wire as the tree wire. I'm going to feed that through my pearl and center my pearl. And then I'm just going to find, 2 nice logical places here that I can attach to without too much notice. So just right here around this bottom branch, I'll make 2 little wraps just to get it right now so you can see it. So I tied it right there. Those 2 little wraps. You want to make those as neat as you can so that they're not, you don't want to do like 5 or 7 because then they're kind of unsightly, but 2 or 3, and if you can weave them along the branch of the tree, which we're going to do in a minute to get rid of them, it's better than just leaving a couple of wraps right there. So here's the other side of my wire, and I'm going to turn my moon until I find a place where I think it'll attach well, which is this branch right here. So I'll make a couple of passes through here. Just get as close to that as you can. And again, I'm wrapping kind of with my branch and out a little bit so that I don't have, too much bulk going on right there. I made a couple of little wraps right there, and now I'm kind of trailing them out. These are long, long stretches till I get to the edge here. And then I can strategically hide this wire, either right there wrapping at the edge, or I can even lap the frame if I want to. I'm just going to make a couple of closing tying wraps right here on this branch. The wire is so thin it almost, can knot itself, so just get it kind of 2 or 3 times around that, and then you can trim it out right there where it's not seen or felt. Just like that. Make sure that little guy's sitting in there. And then kind of the same with, with this one. Make sure you got a nice tight lay and that there's no, movement. My stone's pretty much in place. And then just trail the wire down the branch until you get to the end of the frame where you can tie it off and hide it without worrying that it's going to unravel at your pearl. And it gives it a little more stability than just 2 or 3 little wraps right there at the edge of the pearl. Okay. And that is it, gang. Congratulations. I hope that you loved this tutorial. Give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, and let me know how you feel and how you enjoy your beautiful 2-sided Tree of Life pendant. Very pretty. Thanks for being here with me. I will see you next time.